Hello, everyone. Today's session is on giving your mind a focus. Generally, our mind is not focused. All kinds of thoughts just pop up in the mind. Whatever we see, our thoughts go there. Whatever we hear, our thoughts go there. Whatever we touch, we think about it. Whatever smell comes around, we start thinking about it. Mind many times is all over the place. If we don't consciously give it something to think about, if we don't give it a focus. And one way that sometimes the mind is described is as a horse. A horse that is lively and strong and can go anywhere. But there is another faculty within us. Not mind is that faculty where thoughts emerge, where feelings come from, where your attitude becomes formed, and then that can manifest. But there is another function within us also, and that is the function that is called the intellect. And the intellect is the power, our power to discern. The intellect is our wisdom, our common sense, but also the knowledge that we have internalized about life, about our perspective on life, about our understanding of self. And so the intellect is that faculty that can guide the mind. Intellect is that faculty that chooses. And so if the mind is like a horse, then the intellect is the one who guides the horse, who steers the horse. Now, you can say horse rider, but doesn't necessarily have to sit on the horse to steer the horse. And so the horse has a lot of strength and power and maybe enthusiasm and vigor and can do all kinds of things, but it needs a focus. It needs someone wise to guide it. It needs someone wise to make the choices of where the horse should go and how the energy of the horse should be used. And that faculty is the faculty of what is called the intellect within spirituality. The faculty to discern, to decide, to analyze, to choose. Our wisdom and our common sense. Now, the problem is if the one who has to steer the horse has no clue also. The horse just go all over the place, anywhere and nowhere, and loses its energy. So same with our mind. That energy to create thoughts, that energy to create feelings and have emotions and create vibrations and an atmosphere, that energy is the energy of the mind. But it needs wisdom to steer it. And so use your intellect. Use your intellect consciously to make choices. What type of thoughts to emerge, to allow the mind to create, because that is what also gets reinforced deeper in the subconscious. Now, we also need to empower the intellect, because like I said, if intellect has no clue, if intellect is confused, then the whole thing becomes a problem. Now, one way to empower the intellect, one powerful way and one very important way, is to expose the intellect to spiritual wisdom, to God's wisdom, to God's knowledge, to a higher perspective, to spiritual knowledge. And that is why one aspect of a spiritual life is regular spiritual studies, so that the intellect gets empowered, so that the intellect can guide the mind, what to think, what not to think, what thought to put in action, and what thought to see as silly, or what thought to see as useless. The intellect can decide what kind of deeper impressions and personality traits that are there in the subconscious, to which of them should be nurtured and which of those habits should actually be deleted. And all of this is the function of the intellect. But we have this intellect, we all have the potential to that wise, that powerful, that clear intellect. But if we dull the intellect, for example, by not nurturing it with wisdom, by exposing it to all kinds of useless information, by exposing it to all kinds of impressions that as if numb our decision power, or by doing things that are against our conscious understanding of what we should be doing, we as if numb our intellect. We make it weak. And over time, intellects of human beings have become weak. And so this horse, this mind, just takes over and pops up whatever, however, whatever the sense impressions come in, whatever comes from the subconscious. And then we just feel flustered, and mind is full of all kinds of useless, maybe even negative, maybe even destructive thoughts, and all kinds of negative feelings and emotions quickly flood the mind. And the intellect just stands by and is powerless. Now, in meditation, you consciously choose to have spiritual thoughts. In meditation, you consciously create thoughts about the spirit, the soul, the higher self. You consciously create thoughts of the invisible dimension, the dimension of timelessness, the dimension of God. You lift the mind beyond the bondages and the chaos of ego-based thinking. And the aim of meditation is that you sit down and consciously practice this, but then that you can continue to do this even though the meditation exercise may be over. That in your everyday life, in your everyday activity, you still use that higher intellect, that empowered intellect, that far-sighted intellect, that broad intellect, that wise intellect to guide your mind, to guide your thoughts and feelings, to guide the personality traits that are formed over time, and if you want to transform or change or shift. We need that wise intellect to hold that bigger perspective or even spiritual perspective. Then the thoughts and the choices during our everyday experiences can shift or can become more beneficial. So give your mind a focus. It means use the intellect, but use a wise intellect, an empowered intellect, a far-sighted intellect. And for that, you need to nurture yourself with higher wisdom. and with periods of reflection, deep reflection about self as a soul, about life, and about the right attitude towards life. So let's take a few minutes to meditate and use this empowered intellect just by observing and becoming focused within. Withdraw the attention from the external. And in a second, create that conscious awareness that the real self is invisible, a soul, a being of consciousness. The one who is a trustee of this body, a trustee of the brain. The body, the brain, it is matter, and matter has given this body in trust to the soul to use for a certain period, but to use for a benevolent purpose, a beneficial purpose. So let us just try and grasp this perspective on self. That here is a tiny star, a being of living light. The caretaker for a temporary period of this body and of the part that we can play out through this body. But the real self is this spiritual being, timeless, imperishable, immortal, living light. Body is not mine. Nothing in this physical world is mine. We are temporary caretakers. Nothing is mine, and so nothing ever can be lost either. We are free. Secure, spiritual beings of light, traveling through time and space. And as we go about the rest of the day, come back to this awareness regularly. Come back to the awareness that we are timeless, invisible caretakers. We don't own anything. We have just come to observe and play. Thank you and have a good day.